sound is known as the rhythm of your life, because we always have that one or two songs that we just cannot get out of our head. We will remember them from when we're very, very young until we're old. And one of the biggest changes, and to not keep this real chronological, but the recording industry has been probably one of the most affected mediums based on what's happened during this digital era. And I'm going to talk quite a bit during this module about the digitalization and how it's transformed the distribution as well as the economic base and the business model of the entire recording industry. They say that music is the soundtrack of your life. There's songs like Happy Birthday that you can remember from when you were really young. It's the song they tell us to sing to ourselves twice when we're washing our hands during the COVID virus. There's that song that either if you're married that you played at your wedding, the song you dance to as a couple, the song you dance to with your father or your mother, things like that. You probably have a special song between you and your significant other. There's also those songs that the beat doesn't get out of your head. Probably for me, it's a little farther down the list here, but it's jingles. If I hear jingles, sometimes I will plug my ears and do the la 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 so that I don't sing it in my head for hours. It's called a brain worm. There's also those songs that just bring up random memories of things. And we always have dance music we remember. For me, with my era, it's probably the stuff from the there's several things, the disco era, the country line dancing era. There's all kinds of things, EDM, real specific dance types, steps. Then there's Top 40 Radio, which was around when I was young, and it was very, very popular. We used to count it down every Saturday morning with Casey Kasem. But it was those songs you heard over and over and over again. Now they're called classic rock or oldies, and they're still playing them over and over and over again. When we wanted music when I was young, you went to the record store. You went to stores like Tower Records or Billboard. You went to stores like Tower Records, especially if you lived in California, because they were very, very popular in Los Angeles and in San Francisco area. And another place we used to go is Warehouse. But they're gone. They're gone because no longer, first we had vinyl, then we had 8-track, then we had cassette, then we had CDs, then we had digital music, then we had Napster and we could file share. And now we have our music streamed. So there's really no need for record stores. So the whole distribution model, how music is distributed from recording to the audience listening to it, has changed so much. There was a lot on social media several years ago about how music has changed, and Variety magazines probably and Billboard magazine are probably two of the most popular publications that talk about that. Here's a great video called All Things Must Pass that
a job at Tower Records because that's the only place that I could get a job with my haircut. That is the truth.
The largest record store in the universe is Tower Records.
Tower Records had everything. They were like friends.
If you came into town, you went to Tower Records.
Tower was the center of it all.
San Francisco,
New York,
Japan,
London.
Revenues of $1 billion.
The whole thing became a phenomenon.
Tower was like the place to work at.
we had no dress code.
There was always a party atmosphere. And even if you threw up, you had to show up.
You were part of his family. That was the fun part.
Russ Solomon, Tower Records was what he did. I don't think he thought he could do any wrong.
A perfect storm of events was developing.
There was no need for kids to even go in a record store to get their music.
When the banks came in, we knew that things were going to change.
It's the end of an icon.
He fought, but he basically had to cut the heart out of the company.
Somebody's taking it away from us. The bank said, we don't need a visionary.
It defined the generation. It was really the statement of that time.
To be able to go into a store where there was people that knew music, it's just a missing part of our society now.
I don't really understand why it's gone.
We just happened to be at that right place at the right time. You want to call that luck? Then call it luck.
What would you call it?
Luck.
A little bit of history here in these two slides, or in this slide here in these two pictures. We have Johnny Cash on the left, and we have a very young Justin Bieber on the right. When Johnny Cash wanted to get started, he went out, paid the money, got records pressed, little vinyl records pressed, and a big pile of them, and he got in his car and he drove all around Tennessee, and because he was from Memphis, so he did Memphis, and he did Nashville, and he drove around and took his record to radio stations and asked them to play his music. That was his distribution method. Justin Bieber was actually discovered on YouTube. So we've got kind of how musicians are found today is mostly YouTube and a streaming service. We used to have MySpace. We used to have Justin Timberlake. There's been an entire change in the whole business model of the recording industry. And people say anymore, who needs a record company? Who needs RCA and Motown and things like that? Because a musician today can record their own music and distribute it themselves. In the internet era, it is possible for an artist to record, distribute, publicize, and sell songs without the help of a record company. And contrast that to the days of Johnny Cash, who had to hustle money for a demo, and he went to a record company just kind of starting out like a garage band. Justin Bieber was pretty much already a big YouTube star when he was 12, and when Usher found him and put him on Star Search, it launched him out of obscurity by the time he was 13. It all started with homemade videos that he posted on YouTube. Over recent years, the music industry's witnessed an independent revolution as more unsigned artists break into the mainstream without the backing of a major label. Thanks to indie music distributors, it's now easier than ever for unsigned artists to distribute their tracks to the world's leading online music stores and platforms and start collecting royalties from the likes of iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, and more. The recording industry has a very rich history. It goes back a long way. First, we have 1877, Thomas Edison invented the phonograph. And you can see it there, not probably as close up as I'd like you to, but it actually was based on a wax cylinder. Then, 10 years later, Emil Berliner invented the gramophone, and that was based on a disc technology. So we've gone from a wax cylinder to a flat disc, more like you'd think of a CD kind of thing. By 1919, there was 107 million records, vinyl records, manufactured. Going back to Thomas Edison, he did not invent the phonograph for recorded music. He made it for the human voice. He thought it was best for what's called the spoken word. And actually what he recited first was Mary Had a Little Lamb. And he wanted it more to be used in business dictation. The gramophone, again, I want to reiterate that the phonograph used a cylindrical technology, whereas the gramophone used the disc technology, which is still more common. Part of the reason is wax cylinders has the needle played it over and over again. What's going to happen if you take a candle and a pen and you just keep circling it, or even something really sharp like a needle? It's going to deteriorate. So they had to find a technology that was going to last longer. Berliner eventually joined forces with Eldridge Johnson, and they formed the Victor Talking Machine Company, which is where we get the Victrola. And their trademark there is a picture of a dog named Nipper, And the slogan is his master's voice. And now I have a pit bull, and they love to turn their heads whenever they hear that funny noise. I think that they're the perfect dog to represent that. They later merged with RCA, and the disc technology just took over. If I played every song on this slide, we would be here for, probably a good 45 minutes. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some songs that represented the roots of American pop music. It started back with blues, and one of my favorite blues songs, which I will play a little snippet of, is Muddy Waters.
Yeah, bring me champagne when I'm thirsty. Bring me a reefer when I want to get high. Yeah, bring me champagne when I'm thirsty.
Next, we have Ragtime with Scott Joplin. And one of my favorite songs from that era would be the Maple Leaf Rag. Then about 1910, jazz emerged. We first had Jelly Roll Morton, and he recorded the very first jazz song in 1910 called Jelly Roll Blues. Gee, real original. In the 1920s, we had Benny Goodman, Louis Armstrong, and Duke Ellington. By the time we got into, I'm going to sort of jump around here, we got into the 70s, we had what was called jazz fusion, which mixed up things with rhythm and blues and jazz. And probably my favorite two bands for that are Return to Forever with Chick Corea and Weather Report. Going backwards now in time, I'm going to hit the 40s where we had the Andrews Sisters with
from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man at his class. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because they couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand. Because the next day the cat went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. A toot, yeah, da toot.